Welcome back to the Bryan Devore Connection. I'm your host, Bryan Devore. We bring the love. I love that phrase. It's a wonderful phrase for a company that does hospice, and hospice is kind of a heavy subject sometimes, so when you can introduce love to it, I think it makes a big difference. Here to talk to us about We Bring the Love and the company, Shores Hospice, is my friend Christina Marquez. Christina, thank you for coming today.
Thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here.
And I'm happy to have you here. We've known each other for a long time,
Yeah.
and I don't know what took so long, but now you're in that chair.
Thank you.
So,
Thank you.
Very exciting. Tell me about Shores Hospice.
Yeah, so I've been in hospice about 10 years. I've worked for the really large hospices and kind of everything in between. And Shores is a small boutique hospice. And I think that's what makes us unique. We had a patient recently, and the patient was sent to us from another hospice. They weren't happy with the communication on that hospice, and we took care of her through the end of life. And I said, hey, how did everything go? How are you doing? And she came back, I know who to call if I need the love. And so that's where that really came from. And I think what makes us unique is we are small. We have our communication is better. There's a lot more case management that goes on because the communication is flowing two ways. It's flowing from the team to the families and back and forth. So they know if they're calling somebody, they're getting somebody on the team, and it's not having to go through somebody to get somebody else. So our communication is amazing. And I think that's really what makes us different.
I love that.
Yeah.
So we'll talk more about Shores in just a moment. Tell me about your journey to hospice.
Yeah. So at the very tender age of 22, I decided that I absolutely loved the senior population and found a master's program at gerontology at Cal State Fullerton. I was the first graduating class ever.
Wow.
For that master's in gerontology back in 2002, and have been working in the senior industry since then. So we're going on, I won't say, but a very little bit. And 10 years ago, I moved to San Diego, fell into hospice, and absolutely fell in love. I found my niche. I always tell people, like, I'm not a fun person to me because we know what's happening if I'm here, but my job is to give you absolute truth and to do it with a little bit of love and laughter.
Yeah. And, hospice is kind of a heavy subject.
Yeah.
But I think a lot of people have a misconception
Absolutely.
about what hospice
Absolutely.
is. A lot of times people think, okay, well, if they're on hospice, they're going to be passing away in 2 days. That's not necessarily the case.
It's not. I tell people, you hear kind of the two sides of it is, oh, my family member, my neighbor went on hospice and they died in 2 days. And so what I love to say is that person would have passed away regardless. Hospice wasn't given enough time to truly be effective, but their job in that was to make sure that patient was comfortable and that they died peacefully surrounded by love. And so hospice, there is that misconception. So if somebody's coming on and they're dying quickly, that means that would have happened regardless. And I always say, we don't make the journey happen any faster. We just are making sure you're making a soft landing. And so with that, we want someone to come on that maybe has that 6 months or less prognosis, but they are going to the hospital a lot, or they're going to skilled nursing. And it's kind of this loop of something happens, they go to the hospital, they go to skilled, then they go back home. Hospice comes in and we break that loop and we say, okay, we're going to completely take over your care. But instead of having to wait 6 weeks to go to the doctor or go to urgent care, you call us. We can have a nurse come the same day. If you need antibiotics or something like that, we can have those things usually within 24 hours. So you get a lot more hand-holding, and it's a psychosocial approach to care. So we have chaplains, we have social workers, we have home health aides, we have nurses, we have doctors. So it's an entire team that is caring for that person. Lots of education, what end of life looks like, and how we make sure that patient is completely comfortable and the family is supported through the end of their life.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
It's a very holistic approach.
Very holistic.
Now, what a lot of people don't understand is, and I've heard this before, is they have a choice of who they want to use for hospice. And a lot of times, when they're given the diagnosis and they choose to no longer have aggressive treatment and they just want to have the comfort end of life, they'll be directed to 3 different companies, and these are the ones you have to choose from. But that's not the case.
It's not. People are often surprised because what happens is a doctor is maybe associated with a certain hospice, so he'll say, oh, here's a referral to you, and people think, oh, well, that's who I have to go to. But really and truly, there's a ton of hospices, and it's not a one type fits every single person. And I'm the first one to tell you, if we're not a good fit for somebody, I'm going to refer them to maybe a larger agency or somebody that's going to fit them a little bit better, because we all do something just a little bit different. The biggest difference with Shores is that we will do daily visits. We'll have a home health aide come daily if we need to, and that's for that little added on kind of oversight. Other hospices are generally coming 3 to 5 times a week, depending on that. Also, part of that is how strong is your clinical team? As somebody that meets with families on a regular basis and says, hey, we're going to take good care of you, I need to be 100% that my team my team alongside me is going to come in and do an amazing job. As a salesperson, if that's not happening, it does not make my job easy.
Right.
And so I think, yes, like do your due diligence, do your research. There's hospicecompare.gov, there's Yelp reviews. You want to make sure that they have good reviews. We're all going to have a mix because it's communication, but generally you want to make sure that the over thing is that there are good reviews and that they are doing a good job. We're all compared against other hospices on how well we educated, how well we managed pain, how well, we really treated that person with compassion. And so just do your due diligence. You don't have to make that decision right away, and meet with a couple and make sure that you're making the most informed decision.
Yeah. One thing you touched on briefly was your support of the family, because it's not just the patient's journey, it's the family's journey too. And oftentimes they've never gone down this journey before.
Yeah.
And I would think that being a small, sort of nimble company, you can provide that greater level of support for whoever kind of pops in as a family member to support the whole team.
I think yes. And we send a ton of patients home. One of the challenges that have happened since COVID in hospice is long-term skilled nursing beds are really hard to come by now. And so when I'm leaning on a family and trying to get somebody discharged from the hospital on hospice, we're looking at what community resources they have, what caregiving in place they have, and how do we add to that to make sure that they are well supported. So the other thing you're kind of moving is you're coming up with a solid discharge plan, and you're making sure that family is supported so they can best support that patient through the end of their life, and they're comfortable doing that.
Got it. And any other success stories you can share that you can think of?
I have a ton.
Awesome.
Probably the most one, we had a patient at the hospital. They had been on another hospice for a very long time. The hospice had not been great at communication with them, and they literally hadn't seen somebody in a couple weeks. And so she's like, I don't know what to do. And they had been on for a long time. And the hospital came to me and said, hey, we know you guys are on it. We know that they'll get the visits they need. And so we were able to take him home. They needed the home health aide. We were able to get our home health aide in there daily. And that patient passed with peace. The family felt supported. And she said, gosh, I wish I would have known about you guys a lot.
Wow. And there's no do-overs when it comes
There's
to
no
hospice.
I always say we get one chance, you guys. There's one chance on hospice.
Right. Make the right choice.
Yeah,
for
absolutely.
Sure. So information for Shores Hospice and Christina is on screen. Phone number, website. Check them out. And again, you have a choice in who you want to work with when it comes to hospice. And Shores is definitely one that I recommend you do check out. Christina, thank you so much for sharing today.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Yeah.